There are many, and I can share one that hasn't been shared publicly, and I hope my partners in this project don't get upset. But I think it's time already.
Welcome to episode 28. I'm Luke.
And I am George.
And today we are joined by an OG investor in the space and founder of the Proof of Attendance protocol, Patricio Worthalter. Patricio tells us the fascinating story of how he originally got into the space after sorting out a ransomware payment in Bitcoin and finding the whole process so enjoyable. He speaks of building POAP, the difficulties and the successes. We discuss interoperability, competing blockchains, tribalism, and why the whole space is so exciting right now. At the end, we announce the winning entry for the Gerbil of Wall Street and set the next non-fun gerbil competition. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Non-Fun Gerbils podcast, the show about digitally scarce gerbils, non-fungible assets, and the growing decentralized economy. So we welcome Patricio to the podcast. Patricio, welcome. We've known each other for some years, and I'm super excited to get you on the podcast because you have a very unique view of the space. So welcome.
Hello, guys. Very happy to be here.
I guess the best place to start would be to just introduce yourself to our listeners and maybe just give a little bit of the backstory of how you've ended up where you are.
Okay, my name is Patricio Worthalter. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina, a country very far away from most of the crypto centers, but still very active. I'm 34 years old. I've been born in 87. I have to think about that because my birthday was a couple days ago. So I've been born in 87. When I was 17, I dropped high school because I wasn't doing any good. And I started working. I've been a computer technician for maybe 10 years. I stumbled upon Bitcoin in 2012, but I was too busy to go through the hoops that took at that time to understand Bitcoin. And although it sounded an exciting tech, I couldn't get it. That's too bad, but it doesn't matter. In 2014-15, I once again stumbled upon Bitcoin because some family friend or something got one of those ransomware softwares that require you to pay money for getting a decryption key for your files. And I was helping them getting the decryption key, and that meant sourcing the Bitcoins and paying the ransom. And the whole experience was so smooth and I'm not joking. I went to a dark market financial operator, like this is a dark office on a very dark building that's completely brandless. You don't know where you are, you don't know anything, but there are many of those in Buenos Aires. You bring physical banknotes, like your cash, and they got you Bitcoins. And it was mind-blowing because the idea that I was getting digital money without going through any hassle and wiring that money to who knows who, and who knows where that who was really mind-blowing. So I paid the ransom, and I was so shocked that I started to learn more about Bitcoin and to understand what is going on. And shortly after, I met a cryptocurrency guy, also from the city, that was a friend of a friend, and we were on the same group of friends. And that guy ended up being one of the founders of Decentraland, coincidence of life, like 2 years after, so he became some sort of NFT celebrity. I had coffee with this guy, and I told him, well, I'm shocked about how cool this is, and I'm sure that there are many things I'm missing. What's the most important thing I'm missing? And these guys tell me, well, every Bitcoin person around that's really passionate and it's worthy of attention, they are all working or doing things with Ethereum. And he says, I don't really understand it much. It sounds cool, but I'm fully focused on Bitcoin. But if you want to know what's going on, that's the thing that's going on. And he says, I can tell you, the people I respect the most, they are all working on Ethereum. So I got into that Ethereum thing, and this was around September 15. Ethereum had launched a couple of months ago, Frontier. I started putting more and more time of that. Eventually, it became full time. The journey of learning about Ethereum was extremely hard. It took me a lot of time and a lot of effort. Not having a technical background, because as I said, I'm a high school dropout, and I don't know if I said so, but it's not that I have a computer science background or anything. It was really hard. It took me many years. I was completely confused about what Ethereum was actually at the time, but it was fun. Its return of investment from a resource perspective, both time and money, was impressive, because in those 2 years between 15 and 17, I spent most of my productive time, but I also acquired an immense amount of knowledge and connections and abilities in the space. And that led me to become a dev developer, because in 18, I was quite bored of chasing projects and being an investor. Being an investor in the Ethereum space, it's like bottom of the barrel on the interest hierarchy. Like if you go to an Ethereum conference and you are an investor, you are the most useless person around, and this is only half joking. Nobody really cares about investors because it's the thing we have the most. So I was somewhat tired of having to chase projects and having to chase founders and not having any cloud that allows me to get in the most interesting conversations. So I started to think, how could it become a dev developer? And I guess that's how the story of POAP starts. But maybe you guys want to ask something else about my background before, or do we go straight to POAP?
No, that's a really good rundown of how you got into the space. And of course, we know each other because of our investment links in the space, and also because if you go to any conference at all and spend any time meeting people, you meet Patricio. And so we've spent many conferences together, having fun and meeting people. But of course, more recently, you've been before the whole pandemic started, conferences were becoming more and more part of your daily life because of POAP, and because of this ability to prove that you were at a particular event, which is such a lovely idea. So maybe let's go into POAP and what it is, and what drove you to produce this technology.
Yeah, so the way we met, it's a nice thing to mention in this context, because it's one of the precursor ideas of POAP. So I was in Cancun in DevCon 3. This was in October 17 approximately, and most of my connections were with either projects I was an investor in, and there were like 20 of them. And when I say investor, I should say maybe backholder, but the difference is nuanced. And also other investors. I didn't have access or I didn't have connections onto the development space and on the research space, because it just didn't happen. I was so busy trying to make money and get better investments that was my full focus. And it does happen to us humans that everything we want in life, it's what we don't have, or most of the times. So I met the super friendly and nice people from KR1. At that time, they were only Kelt and George. And we had very nice conversations sharing our journeys on the space. We were both full of coincidences and some good luck too. And that was fun. So I started attending more and more conferences from there. And when I had to think which type of dApp I want, or what can I use the blockchain for, the Ethereum blockchain, considering that the Ethereum blockchain at that time wasn't very powerful. I mean, it's as powerful as a Turing-complete blockchain can be, but we didn't have an ecosystem of dApps and tooling and composability. We barely had my Ether wallet. Maybe we had a rudimentary mobile wallet, but they were all quite horrible. And I I had this crazy idea for a long time that we needed something like Foursquare. Foursquare being the Web2 application you use for getting badges every time you checked in at a venue, like a concert or a restaurant or something. But it had to be better. So I knew NFTs. NFTs weren't very popular at the time, but they were cool. I don't think I need to explain on much depth what an NFT is on this podcast. The idea of having digital assets that only you can own, this concept of some called true ownership, that can be moved around and that can be integrated with other apps, it sounded quite revolutionary, because we could have first thing a censorship resistant Foursquare, and then one that could be integrated with other different apps or dApps. So I was traveling to so many conferences that I wanted to have my own logbook, like I've been here and I've been there and I've been with someone else at that location. So I finally put the things together. Like, we should issue a NFT token, a non-fungible token, every time we go somewhere, and maybe at the end of the year we can compare who has what and where have we been, and let's put cool images on them and make a collection. And the thing just came together like organically. I have to admit, or maybe not admit, but it's not that I had a blazing idea with POAP. It just happened. I just wanted the thing to exist. I had the resources. I had the drive, because the drive got boosted because in 17 and 18, there was this narrative that Ethereum was only useful for ICO stuff and making money and taking money from uneducated people and scams. And Bitcoiners were getting at it. Bitcoiners were agitating and got really annoying. And they had a point. If you went to on-chain activity on Ethereum, it was all ERC20 token transfers. Like 99% of the block space was ERC20 block token transfers. And most of them, now we can say it more with more conviction, they were useless. Because at that time, you could have said, well, but these tokens that are moved, they are shares on companies that are going to be successful. It just didn't happen. They were tokenized equity, they were tokenized securities, or whatever you want to call them, but it just didn't happen, or it happened at a tiny, tiny scale. Maybe MKR is not useless, but still it was highly experimental. So I started this new wave of saying the Ethereum blockchain is not completely useless. It's not only about taking money from people. Our tokens don't have any monetary interpretation. There's nothing, they don't cost anything. You don't buy them. You just have to be present at the event. If you are present at the event, then you don't need to pay for getting it. And they do something you couldn't do with any other technology. Because if POAP, or any application that does proof of attendance, maybe I should have said that POAP is a proof of attendance protocol, and what we do is that every time you go to an event, you get a non-fungible token that proves that you were at that event. I'm sorry about breaking the chronology. So what the new narrative I decided to spin off, and it went well, was that you go to an event, you get a non-fungible token, and that token belongs to you, and you can be sure that it's going to be there forever, and your children may get it because it can become part of your state. And if instead we run on Amazon Web Service or Google Cloud or any cloud computing provider, how could you, collector of tokens, how could you be sure that your tokens are going to be there forever? It's unlikely that these technologies, these Web2 technologies that we are used today, are going to be around in 10 years, much less 50. And even if they were, let's say that there was some way to guarantee that, and again, it's unlikely. Every web property we used to use 10 years ago, it's pretty much gone by now. From Flickr, MSN Messenger, ICQ, if you go back in time, or even Google Talk, or to speak about more established products. So in our case, you can be sure that as long as Ethereum blockchain exists, and it's highly likely that Ethereum blockchain is going to exist in 50 years, and even if not, anyone can have a copy of Ethereum blockchain to migrate it to whatever is current in 50 years. So you have that guarantee, and at the same time, you have the guarantee that you couldn't have on AWS, which is once you have a token, nobody can take it from you. No government authority can subpoena the hosting provider to take it from you. And the database administrators, if there's any, can't issue fake tokens, which is something that makes sense if you are collecting proofs of being at places. And if you don't have a blockchain or a fully trustless solution, you couldn't build such an application. It's literally impossible, or maybe say literally impossible is going too far, but using the Ethereum blockchain, it makes it easy. It makes it easy to go around and collect proofs and do whatever you want with that proofs.
So what you've explained there is that Ethereum was providing the perfect mixture of robustness of a network. So you're knowing that it's still going to be around in the future, which didn't necessarily exist before. And you're getting that proof that you can prove that a token is yours and no one can take it away from you. So you have that ownership. And so from that, it absolutely makes sense to have proof of attendance protocol tokens to map your journey through the space and through the events that you go to and the people that you meet and the things that you partake in.
Yeah, which is something people love to do, but they don't have a way to do so today. So, for example, people that go to concerts or festivals, they normally keep their wristbands. And sometimes at conference, you see people with 10 wristbands, and that doesn't scale. You can't keep your proof of attendance using wristbands. They can get lost. They get gross over time because they accumulate bacteria. But that's what people do. Some other people keep the tickets, like the physical one entry ticket. Some others get a T-shirt, but they are all very weak value propositions for proof of attendance. Right now, you can easily tell that people like to have proof of attendance of things. They just can't.
And as we're moving into a digital era, it makes sense to have a digital proof that you can take with you anywhere, and you can build up as many as you want, and they don't weigh you down and make your wrists disgusting.
So in Ethereum, we had this thing, or we used to have this thing before the pandemic, that was the conference circuit. In the conference circuit, you had a packed calendar of events all around the world. And you had like an itinerant group of people that hopped from plane to plane and to plane and venue every week and attended different sorts of events. There are many reasons why that happened, but they are not important to explain now. So I called my friends on the conference circuit. I pitched POAP, and they started doing their own collections, and the design space started to flourish. People are starting to propose things you could do with POAP, and it felt like on the early days of Ethereum, even before Ethereum launch, when people are starting to ask themselves and others, what could you do with a Turing complete blockchain? And the design space was limitless. You could do many things you couldn't have imagined. Something along the same lines happened with POAP, that every person that understood the blockchain had a different idea of things they could do with POAP, and they were all fun. Like, some people would tell you, well, you can use it, let's say a marketing professional, to loyalize your attendees. Someone that was on the academic sector would say, well, let's use it for track participation in academic courses. Then someone that likes museums would tell you, let's use it every time you go to a museum to track different exhibitions. Someone that likes sports says, well, I would have liked to have POAP for all the World Cup matches I attended, or in every different sport. And then someone said, why don't we combine that? So on the same collection, you have the POAP to the Guggenheim Museum visit, and then the POAP of your fishing trip with your friends, and the POAP of your academic course you have completed. And it started to happen, and now there's 50,000 POAPs on mainnet, belonging to maybe 10,000 people. And some collections are impressive because of their variety. Collections are pseudonymous, like you don't know who's behind because you only see an Ethereum address. But if you see a person that has a POAP from the Osaka DevCon 5 conference, and then that person has a POAP from Berlin and another POAP from the Netherlands, it gets exciting to observe and to see the collections of different people. So many of these crazy ideas we had on the early days, they are becoming a reality. It's very exciting to see this becoming a thing because we were and we still are an experiment. POAP is highly experimental. We call it an experiment in the applied math field because we used extremely complex cryptography, like all the cryptography Ethereum uses and needs, to do something so simple as giving people stickers of the places they have been in the world.
So when did this begin? What's the timeline?
Yeah, the timeline is quite exciting also because the way it happened. We didn't have a plan, but things went according to what could have been our most ambitious plan. That was really exciting. So I started with the idea in late 2018 and sharing it with my friends and explaining what I wanted. And something that happened is, and it was not disappointing, but it was challenging. It's that building on Ethereum is very hard. Very hard. The tech stack, the tool you use and the things you have to deal with require lots of attention. This is nowhere like putting together a website and having fun with it. The process from idea to product, it's an obstacle course. So I found that it was going to be very hard to build, and I didn't have the skills or the knowledge. I didn't even have the skills to understand what I needed to get the thing built. It's really hard. It's like you want to build a house and you may not know how to put together a wall, but at least you know the professional you need to put together a wall and the ingredients, the materials. Like we have some idea about how to put together a house. Building on Ethereum is nowhere like that. You get to learn that things have changed. Things change all the time. Like if you knew, it's like if you knew how to build a house 1 year ago, but now the techniques that they were used 1 year ago to build the house are completely outdated and they don't work anymore. And the patterns, the way you do it today, are the opposite of what they used to be. So it took me many months of research and understanding how to build it. And I got very lucky. And between my friends, I gathered interest from different people, and I convinced them on helping me build this. And this is quite fundamental on the story of POAP, because POAP wasn't a commercial enterprise, wasn't a startup. It was just me that convinced a group of friends helping me building this. And it was really a collective effort. And from the group of friends, and I'm going to speak about them right now because it's quite important, but from the group of friends, I did the least work because I'm completely useless about building dApps. I only had the idea and the drive. So like around December 2018, I decided what was going to be the core team. And it's not that I decided, I just found enough people that had what I needed and they were willing to help. So I had private conversations with them and I told them, and we were very lucky. Like when I tell this story, I notice how lucky we were. We decided that we were going to get the thing built on ETHDenver 2019. ETHDenver is like the top event on the Ethereum space in America. It's like DevCon in America. I've been there on 18 and I knew it was mind-blowing. And we all knew that ETHDenver 2019 was going to be impressive. So we applied to a hackathon. We were accepted. We had a team of 4, which was the most members you could have on a single team. And in this team, of course, it had me as a person who had the idea. We had a highly experienced Solidity developer that had done interesting products on Solidity before, so he was highly experienced. Then we had a computer scientist that was a friend of mine from high school that wasn't a developer, like a Solidity developer at the time, but he was really experienced on putting a product together and doing whatever it takes for getting the thing out the door. And then we had a designer from Germany. He was the only one that wasn't from Argentina. So we got together that weekend on December. We put the application together, and surprisingly enough, on that 4 days of work approximately, we got the thing built, and it worked to the full extent of our expectations. Like we reached our stretch goal. Not only it worked on many wallets people had. We managed to issue tokens for tens of participants of December. It was we got an impressive recognition and acclaim because having put that together in a weekend, deploying it to mainnet, and having it work was really an impressive achievement. So, this was in February 2019, and from there we had to make a decision, and it is a tough decision because most hackathon projects die right after the hackathon finishes. But we said to ourselves, if we had so much success, and we did, it would have been a pity if we didn't keep the project moving forward. And I really wanted to move the project forward because I wanted it to exist for a long time. And I really liked the idea of being a DApp developer. I liked the attention I got. I liked the feedback. So 2 weeks after, we went to France. Typically, it was the next stop on the conference circuit. Like it's Denver, it's ETHCC. ETHCC, which is the Ethereum Community Conference that happens in Paris every year, was also a top event that really made a lot of sense for us to go. We went to ETHCC. We keep issuing POAPs. We gave POAPs to many people, including some that had POAPs on December. After ETHCC, we applied to ETH Paris, which wasn't on the plans, but it still was fun. We issued lots of tokens on ETH Paris. We grew in every metric. We grew in users. We grew in attention. We grew in feedback. Like people really loved this. They really wanted to see it happening. They all got the same excitement that finally something on Ethereum that it's nice to use, that makes sense, that's something I want. And it's not about trading tokens or money things or financial applications. So we kept the next stop on the conference circuit was EdCon in Sydney. This was April 2019. Sydney was again a humbling success. It was humbling to see so many people so interested on our thing. Next stop on the conference circuit, this was May 2019. We went to East New York. East New York ended up being one of the best hackathons in the history of Ethereum. And at that event, there was a breaking point. And we said, this is going so well that needs a better code base and needs to be better than what it is now because it's no longer a hackathon project. After we went to 4 conferences and we killed it, I forgot to mention that on East New York, we were an official capacity. Unlike the other ones where we somewhat sneaked in and gave people badges without asking anyone's permission, in East New York, the organizer invited us. We were on the media materials, and we got so much attention that it was hard to handle. Like we had people coming to our table during the whole course of the weekend, and I made this decision of turning POAP from a hackathon project to a full-blown DApp on the space that makes sense, that is done with a spirit of sustainability instead of just being a weekend project. By that time, unfortunately, my co-founders had left, the 3 of them, because they had to go to their full-time jobs or whatever they were doing, and POAP didn't make any money. POAP wasn't going to make any money. The spirit of the application was to be a public good, a community common, so we couldn't make it a business. We didn't want to make it a business. So we parted ways. I mean, the relationship kept being the same thing. We were very good friends. They just weren't in POAP. And I hired the software factory. And this is interesting for people that may want to build dApps or to learn or to know how building dApps is in Ethereum. Although this software factory has made a top-notch job, like they got everything I asked, they got it done, and they got it done well. It was another lesson about how hard it is to build on Ethereum. I was disappointed, and it was frustrating that our dApp that was built on a hackathon was kind of weak and flaky and unreliable, and it wasn't robust enough for what we wanted. But it wasn't just because it wasn't done well. It was just because our expectations were too high. And we found out that many things we wanted to do on Ethereum weren't just possible. And that was a block that it was very unpleasant to find. It was very unpleasant to find, for example, that you couldn't have a non-fungible token that looked nicely on all devices. It happened all the time that if it looked nice on Trust Wallet, it would broke on Cypher Browser or Coinbase Wallet. And if you wanted it to look nice on both wallets, you had to hard code some parameters that would break upgradability. Because if you are hard coding parameters, when you do an upgrade, it's highly likely that unless you carefully craft, like surgically, all those parameters on the new code base, they will break. And not only we had to make it compatible with a couple wallets, some people use it on desktop, some others using on tablet PCs, some other use it in devices I haven't seen before. And we spent lots of money and time and resources trying to make POAP looks nice on all devices. And that eventually became a lost battle. You can't just have NFTs that look nice on all devices. You can't, even up to these days when the NFT has evolved a lot. And I'm quite upset that I spent so much trying to get that done. This software factory I hired here in Buenos Aires has done everything possible, and that just didn't make it. So that's a nice learning from this. From our journey. Not only it's not all fun and games, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get it up to mainnet. And even when they do, you have to curb your enthusiasm, because the best you can get done on the current state of the technology, it's way more primitive than what you would want if you really want a world-class app like using Facebook. And I'm not comparing myself to Facebook, but if you are a local business somewhere and you can have a nice website, you can have a website that is somewhat on par with the top websites on the internet. You may just have to hire the top professionals on the field and spend a lot of money, but you can have it. On Ethereum development, it's nowhere like that. The best dApp you can get, it's still going to be a clunky thing that makes you feel like you want to stick a fork in your eye. Like you can use Compound or Aave these days, and they are extremely well-polished product, but that doesn't prevent that you have to wait for confirmation. That doesn't prevent that if you start on a device and you move to another device, the thing is going to glitch badly if it doesn't break. And that's the way it is. And it is the cost you have to face when you deal with early stage technology. And that's why I still call POAP applied math experiment, because we are experimenting. We have incoming requests for having POAP in events like the US Open. So just imagine how cool it would be to get a proof of attendance protocol token, an Ethereum-based non-fungible token when you attend the US Open. And I had to turn them down because we aren't there yet. And it's not about money. It's not about resources. POAP is very well funded. If something we don't need in POAP is money to get things done, but we just can't. We don't have the resources. We can't create the resources. It wouldn't be acceptable that the POAP for the US Open only works on certain devices, or it requires specific permissions, or it doesn't work if you don't have the right thing. But we are still building the thing. The software factory, we moved from the software factory we had at that time in 19, and starting 2021, we have our own team, and we have in-house developers, and we have a full-time designer, and that's making everything easier. But it's still going to take much longer until we can have POAP on mainstream events.
And do you see something coming down the line that's going to solve some of these issues? As an investor in the space, you get to see a lot of attempts at various projects from various parts of the ecosystem.
Not only I see them, they are happening. You have things like Argent. Argent is a smart contract-based wallet. You know Argent very well, but I think the audience might be interested to know what Argent is.
Sure.
Argent is a wallet for the rest of us. Somewhat. It's a wallet that you can have for using Ethereum without having to be a tech person, without having to worry about losing your assets, without having to learn new concepts or things you don't do. Maybe you still have to learn a couple. But the thing is, there are endless pieces of effort that are coming together to overcome all these hurdles. I think it's just about time. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen that Ethereum gets easier to use. It's just when it's going to happen. When American Airlines started selling tickets online, I think this was like in 1985, they sold 0.01% of their total ticket sales online for like 15 years. From 1985 to 1995, and those 10 years, they barely sold any ticket online. They may have days with one sale because the things just weren't there. The reasons for buying an airline ticket online weren't strong enough for people to not do it on the traditional way. And it's pretty much the same thing today with the blockchain. But this is changing fast. I mentioned Argent, but there are many more initiatives to overcome these hurdles. The painful experience about having to wait for confirmations is going away very soon, likely this year or next year. So I explain all the pain I had to endure as a dApp developer just because the trauma and the scars it left on me, not to scare people away, more like the opposite. My bottom line comment from building a dApp is building a dApp was a complete crappy process, and it's getting better, and eventually it's going to become like having a website.
And one of the big aspects to this, I'd imagine, is as you were growing in popularity and issuing more and more tokens, and Ethereum is getting more and more expensive, that's going to take up a lot of resources just to actually send the tokens to people. How have you approached scaling in terms of minting and distributing your tokens?
Yeah, that's a solved issue for us. I'm very proud to say that it took us like 6 months of intense work, but we solved our scalability needs in a fairly satisfying manner. And it is easy to explain why. When we started doing POAP in 19, the network wasn't as exhausted and saturated as it is today, but we knew that it was crazy, like reckless crazy, to expect to have the ability to mint these little proofs, these little worthless, valueless proofs on a sharded network that was distributed across the world in thousands of nodes. It just didn't make it. It just didn't make any sense because the material costs of that issuance was too high and was being subsidized by ETH issuance. The reason why all these miners and node operators were running these nodes was because they had expectations of Ether price appreciation. So from the very beginning, we knew that it wasn't sustainable to issue this proof on the Ethereum mainnet. Because of that, the scalability challenge didn't catch us unprepared. When we started having the first gas price surges, we knew well that we needed to move to a different layer. So scalability wasn't the big challenge for us. What we did now was to move to what it's called an Ethereum sister chain, which is the XDAI network. And we could have done so earlier because that sister chain is pretty much the same thing as Ethereum, but it doesn't have miners. So by not having miners, usage is much lower. There are technical explanations, but they aren't really important. The important thing is that by using the XDAI network, we can issue 5,000 tokens at a $1 cost. So to make the numbers easier, we have 50,000 tokens on the networks now, and that would have cost less than $5. It would have costed $10. So scalability is no longer an issue, and for people that really care about their proofs, if they want their proof of attendance proofs, their POAP tokens, to be on the most secure, the most censorship-resistant network out there, which is Ethereum, network that can have NFTs, so no Bitcoin maximalist can come and tell me that the Bitcoin network is more secure. If you want to have your POAP on the most secure network that supports NFTs out there, which is Ethereum, you are very welcome to do so. When you get your proof, or when you go to your collection, there's a little icon that says mint on mainnet, and the POAP gets burned from XDAI and it gets moved to mainnet. And that's how you make completely sure that your grandchildren can get your POAP. And you can do many things that you can only do it on mainnet. Like if you want your POAP to be escrowed as part of a financial transaction, for example, you can do so on mainnet. So answering your question clearly, scalability is no longer an issue because we are using an Ethereum sister chain. For the future, we may use other networks, but really, it's not a challenge. It's our least concern how to scale regarding gas prices.
If you move out into the future in terms of the vision of POAP, what are some of the things that you see being enabled by this proof of attendance? Because I'd imagine that there are elements in terms of identity here that are very interesting. Being able to prove attendance to something. Tell us a little bit about how this could move out in the future, and what exciting things could be done with it.
There are many, and I can share one that hasn't been shared publicly, and I hope my partners in this project don't get upset. But I think it's time already. As you know, Ethereum DevCons are very popular events, and the tickets get sold out, and it's very hard for the organizer to achieve a nice balance between scale and coziness. Like if you sell for DevCon as many tickets as people would like to buy, you'd have a 20,000 people event, especially nearing all-time high. Do you agree so far, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And a 20,000 people event wouldn't create the dynamics that DevCon creates. Because one of the cool things of DevCon is that you may have Hayden Adam from Uniswap walking around, you may have Vlad Samfir walking around, you may have the guy from KR1 walking around. So if you have a project and you need funding, you may find them. And that wouldn't happen on a 20,000 people event. So the organizers need to put a cap. And they put a cap around the 4,000, 5,000, depending on the size of the venue and some other metrics, but that's around the cap. So how do they decide who gets to attend? They couldn't make it just by ticket price like others do. Because like if you are doing a concert for a highly popular musician, you just make higher prices and they are all happy. That wouldn't work on Ethereum because you need people, like many times the youngest developers couldn't afford tickets on the thousands of dollars, and you don't want them to have to go through that. So you need a way to curate attendance and pick the best people, but also you need to make it inclusive enough for everyone that deserves it to be able to get a ticket. So years prior, they had something called the builder ticket, and the builder ticket was like an allocation of 50% of the tickets, like 1 every 2 tickets was a builder one. For applying to a builder ticket, you had to submit your GitHub and be a builder, as someone that used Solidity and builds on the Ethereum network. The problem was that it was impossible for the organizers, or actually anyone, to curate the list properly, because it's too easy to get a fake GitHub with repos and Solidity code, and the people checking the tickets, the people deciding who gets a ticket, can't really check line per line to see if a code is legit or not. And it was also extremely expensive, because if you had to curate 2,000 attendees and look on their GitHubs, it's just too time consuming. So for DevCon in Bogota, we created a specific application process for people passionate about Ethereum, where they submit their personal application for a ticket, and they sign a message with their wallet that holds POAPs, and depending on the POAPs they hold, they get priority. So if you were a person that has won a hackathon and that has POAPs of local meetups, you are going to be top of the list for a builder ticket. If you are a person that haven't won a hackathon but have run a node on Ethereum 2, there's a POAP for people that have been part of the Ethereum 2 Genesis blog, you get a almost surefire ticket. And this is something you couldn't do with any other tech. And because our data set is so wealthy of Ethereum events, we are creating a much safer in giving the right privilege to the right people that you could have imagined without POAP. What do you guys think?
I think that's absolutely fascinating. It enables you to use the chain to prove your own sort of personal provenance.
And this,
fascinating.
This is just the tip of the iceberg, because another initiative we have, and this could be read about on the Ethereum, on the DevCon forum. DevCon has a public forum, I think it's forum.devcon.org. We are doing a polling system for speaking slots, because DevCon has also this problem that there are so many high quality speakers that the organizers have to pick who gets to speak where. And main stage slots are very sought after, especially for projects that have a token. Like if a project have a token, the incentives are right for the leaders to speak on main stage, so token holders get to see it, and prospective token holders get to be excited. So what we are doing for the next DevCon is that we are giving holders of Osaka DevCon POAPs the ability to vote on who they want to see speak. And this is something you couldn't have done with POAP, because online voting or online polling couldn't be done on a civil resistant manner at a scale for cheap. It's just not possible.
That's great news. I've got my Argent open. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I have Blockchain Week 2019 Berlin, DeFi Summit London 2019 on here, and DevCon 5. So I have my DevCon 5 POAP in my Argent. You're saying that because I have that, I will be able to vote on who's going to speak in Bogota.
Yeah, and this is really happening. Although it is an experiment, it is not something we are pitching. It's been approved, and we are building it up.
Don't you think it's a beautiful thing that we're using Ethereum to curate the Ethereum conference?
And we are doing this on Ethereum just because the tech is too hard still for other activities. But this need this need of curating sets of people based on their prior activities or having this provenance applies for everything. Like, for example, the Stanford University in California, which is like one of the top universities in the US and worldwide, they are very active on sports, like many American universities. But university sports don't drive many viewers like to their matches or anything unless it's the finals. For the finals, they all want to be there just because of the cloud or whatever. So what some do, and they use traditional databases for this, and they suck, but I still, it's what they could have done. What they do is that if you attended the matches that nobody want to go, then eventually on the most popular matches, you get prioritized assistance. My point here being is that this is something real world people want, and they just don't get it because the tech stack is not there yet, and they just didn't have the way to do it easily. Like there are many applications we all wanted recently. Like we all wanted to have food delivered to our place quickly, cheaply, conveniently. And only when Uber Eats and Deliveroo and Foodora or wherever you live, you have yours, until that existed, you couldn't get that done. I think this is pretty much the same thing. Many organizations need curation. All of them want it to be cheap. All of them want it to be reliable. All of them want to be extensive. Extensive means composable. So for example, if I am running a DeFi conference in Argentina and I want people to come to it, and the incentives are maybe not there because, like, if you have to fly from London, it's an expensive ticket and it's a completely different climate because it's on a different hemisphere. But if I airdrop you DeFi Summit POAP token holder, I may put you the incentive you needed for you to come. And this is as simple as it can be. It's not a complex thing. You don't need to be a computer scientist. You don't even need to understand blockchain. You just need to use POAP. So speaking about our long-term view, we would love to see more non-Ethereum events using POAP. For that to happen, we need to be friendlier, and we are not so friendlier yet. Like for example, Argent on Android, the last time I checked, didn't see NFT at all. But you know, the iPhone version was super neat. Like it was lovely. On the Android one, they didn't have feature parity. So we need, some things need to happen before we can do mainstream. But we really want to do mainstream, and we want this to be globally used, because POAP, it's a community project. You don't need permission to use POAP as much as you don't need permission from Vitalik to use Ethereum.
I know the last thing that POAP is about putting monetary value on POAPs. Do you think that by having, proof of authenticity of being a builder or being a person in the space, that might bring value to the early POAPs from early events, if it's going to give someone the ability to have a say in future events? Do you think people might start speculating on that?
It is happening. It's not what I think. It does happen. POAPs have a serial number, so you can see your POAP number. Even on events, like nowadays, we are doing lots of POAP for virtual events, like community calls and get-togethers, meetups. And although for all the attendees, all the POAPs are the same, some rush to the door and try to get it earlier just to get a lower ID. And that's all fine for me. I mean, the ID, it's a technical feature that we needed to have for accounting and some smart contract related stuff. But people are start using the ID as something that has more value for them. And that's all fine. It's like people collecting currency. I mean bills, not just amazing fortunes. Have sometimes a higher desire for currency with serial numbers, with palindrome numbers. I don't even know if it's palindromes, or all the same numbers, or consecutive numbers. Like if you have a bill, like a pound sterling bill, and the serial number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's going to be cooler on a collection. So that's happening, and that's not I don't know if I would call intrinsic value, but it's not what you mentioned. You mentioned also the possibility of people looking after POAPs that give them special abilities. That's also happening. We aren't hindering that. It's an internal challenge we have. We are discussing it with our most passionate community members, whether POAP should be transferable or not. There's a proposal that I really like, but I don't know if it's going to happen. Probably not. To make POAPs non-transferable once they belong to a collection. So you can get a single POAP, you can claim it anywhere, but once you put it on an Ethereum account, on an Ethereum wallet that has other POAPs, it becomes a family member of that collection and it can be a spun off. So by doing that, you allow people to keep the same experience they have now, but you also prevent this speculative possibility of POAP. There's a twist of that proposal, which is once you go to an event, you get a POAP, and that POAP has eligibility rights to an immutable POAP. So you could have two of them. One that would be the immutable one that actually proves that you were there, and another one that has the rights, like the right for voting, the right for participating, the right for selling. So it would be more like if you are an Olympic athlete, when you won a medal on the Olympiads, you get a diploma and you get the actual metal medal. And the metal medal you can sell because it's indistinguishable from all other medals. It's just a piece of metal with a ribbon. Although the diploma does has your name and it's immutable and it belongs to you. And people sell Olympiad medals. You can find them on eBay. So these are things we are currently experimenting. They are pretty important for us because what we want now is to grow in our user base, to grow in our use cases. The edge case for when someone sells a POAP or sells the right of using a POAP for voting on something, it's not something that is keeping us away. It's really a secondary issue.
Oh, that's an interesting debate that you've got going on there with whether to make them non-transferable or not. Definitely, there's so many reasons to and not to, I'd imagine, in both directions.
Yeah, I wish I could make both sides happy. And I think it's possible. It may just need some compromises from the puristic people and for the more mercantilistic people, but I think we can make it.
Yeah, well, I guess having let it out the bag that you might be able to get up the list for a DevCon ticket if you were at the DevCon. At the Ethereum 2 launch. That's interesting. I mean, I was there. I have my POAP. I keep it as a memento. But in theory, that's suddenly got potentially some value to it for people who couldn't get a ticket to Bogota and maybe would. So it does add different dimensions to it. I'd never sell it because it's a very important memento to me, but it does give it an extra angle in terms of potential value.
Yeah, so there's what the most technical and the game theory specialists people say about this is that these incentives things, they can't be perfected. You never achieve perfection. It's always an arms race, meaning that you can establish rules for preventing mass abuse, like people selling their tickets. So, for example, what we are doing for DevCon, and this is good for people that may be listening to this podcast and thinking that they will be able to abuse the system. We have taken a snapshot of the holdings a couple of weeks ago. So if you have moved your POAP after that date, which was before we even announced that it was going to happen, then you can't exercise your right.
Gotcha.
Your right for a ticket is forfeit. So the problem is that you can only do that once because now we have burned this secret weapon to prevent that kind of abuse. And now it's like when retroactive airdrops in DeFi, when Uniswap has done that impressive mega airdrop of 400 Uni to every person that ever used Uni, many people started using different products just to get the airdrops. And there was one in particular that has made 500 accounts and 500 trades on 1 inch to get on this to get on the very probably 1 inch airdrop. Every trade he has done was $17 worth of assets, and 1 inch has established that only accounts trading over $20 could get the airdrop. So it's a constant mice and cat game where you have to make a little tweak, and the adversaries are going to make theirs. And we don't expect this to be perfect. We think that our value proposition is to make this easier for organizers to be achieved at a scale. There are always going to be actors that, if they are sophisticated enough and they have the resources, they may abuse it. And it's not a duty of POAP to get that fixed. We in POAP, our main objective is to give people proofs of things they've done or places they attended. Then the applications of POAP are up to those using them, to the actual developers of POAP-enabled solutions. It's then again, Vitalik has invented Ethereum, but he's not thinking how to liquidate loans on MakerDAO. That's up to the MakerDAO people. So in POAP, we want to enable the issuance. We want to facilitate as much as we can, but we don't think that it's our responsibility to come up with a way for event organizers to prevent abuse of rights.
No, sure, that makes total sense. Well, it's been so interesting to sort of really dig down deeper into POAP. I guess maybe we switch tack a little and just have a quick chat about your wider view of the crypto ecosystem. Like I said before, obviously you have a very privileged view of the space because of your ability to get projects going in their very earliest stages, very much like my day job is. But yeah, it'd be fascinating just to get your idea generally of how things are playing out, where Ethereum is, where Ethereum 2 is, and then things like Polkadot, Near, Dfinity, some of these other projects that are coming through.
Yeah. First thing, this is the most exciting time ever, likely. I mean, it's hard to measure. There's no metric for excitement, but the place Ethereum is at now, it's so invigorating, it's so assuring, it's so validating, not only from an adoption perspective, when you have DeFi applications flourishing left and right, also from a price perspective. And this is not something to overlook. Although I'm a builder and my application, my dApp, doesn't have any financial connection whatsoever, or kinda, I don't ignore that the asset price, it's important for the ecosystem to grow. And being on the same week where we had an all-time high on the price and we somewhat had an all-time price on usage of dApps, it's seriously validating. Regarding the expansion of blockchains to different trade-off of consensus, I have a somewhat radical view. I say somewhat because the Ethereum space, the crypto space, is so crazy that there are views for everything. There are views for people that believe that Bitcoin is going to eat DeFi. So if you have people that believe that there's going to be Ethereum-like DeFi activity on Bitcoin, there are people to believe everything. But my radical vision is that we are at a super early stage in everything. When analysts propose how Aave or Compound are going to play out on a global scale, I think they are over-intellectualizing it. I think just to compare with other tech, I think Ethereum, it's on its 5th year, or sixth, and that's somewhat equal to the 5th year from the steam engine invention. I believe that the way decentralized ledger technologies are going to play out in maybe 5, 10, or 20 years, it's going to be so different from what it is now that we will laugh about what our beliefs are now. In POAP, and this is interesting because it's how I see the ecosystem applied to POAP. In POAP, we are all Ethereum people. We are all very passionate about Ethereum, but POAP is chain agnostic. We can't use Ethereum because of the cost we mentioned. We may use an Ethereum-based scaling technology like Optimism, but we likely won't. We use the XDAI network, which has acceptable security guarantees, and that's all fine, and there's no reason for using anything else. And that's the case of POAP. It's somewhat obvious that there are going to be different trade-offs. And for POAP, XDAI was fine, but for others, they may need something that XDAI cannot do, something that is still too expensive to do on Ethereum, and they may end up doing on any other network. In the case of Polkadot, although I don't have the technical knowledge, if a company wanted to issue POAPs and they wanted them to be on a Polkadot-based network, that's all fine. I don't see a reason why that couldn't happen. Dfinity is too hard for me to understand, and 90% of my productive time nowadays I'm spending it on POAP, so I can't go and educate myself. Which other network you mentioned? You mentioned Dfinity, Polkadot.
I think did I mention Near?
Near.
Yeah.
The Near people approaches us on Osaka, so we could do POAPs on Near. We tried. We had some good conversations, but the technology wasn't there. I don't know what's the state of it now, but my personal vision is that consensus networks are going to be commodities, and some commodities are better for some things and some are better for others. Like if you need to weld two pieces of metal together, you may use some specific commodity. If you need to feed hundreds of people, you may use another commodity like soybeans or whatever. If you need to move goods from a location to other, you would use another commodity like fuels. I think consensus networks like Ethereum and Near and Dfinity, I don't even know if Dfinity is a consensus network, but I guess. I think they will serve different audiences. Some dApps are going to require instant speeds. Some others will require a state-level censorship resistance. Some others will require higher storage needs, like Filecoin or whatever they are now. And if what we are building makes sense, when I say if the decentralized applications we are building make sense, they will be business for all of them, because those that don't offer trade-offs that are attractive to dApps, they will have to pivot, and they will. The way Near has pivoted a couple times since they started a couple years ago. So my vision is that consensus networks are databases, and these databases will have different adoption depending on whatever are running. Pretty much the same way we have different databases today, like you have Oracle and DB2 and MySQL and PostgreSQL, and depending on what you need to do, or even maybe it doesn't matter and it's just a matter of affinity. Maybe some people like to use a chain because they are culturally closer to their community, and that's the way it is. I don't think that there's much space for tribalism-based selection. I mean, there is. Tribalism is a thing, It can totally happen that people choose their chain based on tribalism. But I'm very open-minded about all networks finding product market fit on their own niches.
That's fascinating. Well, listen, we share your excitement as well. It's such an extraordinary space to track, and it's amazing what's happening in NFTs, but also just the sheer size of explosion of technology across the whole ecosystem. It is very difficult to keep up with them all.
Yes, something worth mentioning that I think you will be highly interested because it's really connected to this thought. The voting system for DevCon runs on Cosmos.
Well, there you go.
I don't know about it because I'm not involved. It's run by a Spaniard company called Bogdoni, and they use Ethereum for one part, but then they use Cosmos for casting the votes. So what we are doing is we are providing them the data set of addresses holding the POAPs at that snapshot date. But then they decided that Cosmos was the best application to run their thing.
Well, I think that sounds very healthy. It's right to break through the tribalism.
I don't know technically because it's really complex and it uses zero knowledge stuff. So you really have to be some sort of brainiac to understand the full extent. I don't even know what were the underlying reasons for them to build on Cosmos. But the thing is that although I'm an Ethereum person, like as passionate as I can be about Ethereum, and I don't hold any other asset, I think that's worth mentioning as a disclaimer. I don't hold any other chain asset, and I'm still very open-minded. They decided that Cosmos was the best technology for what they want to do, and that's all fine.
I think that's a very healthy way of looking at the space. It's too easy to get bogged down, and when you paint a picture of what's coming in the future, it's not. I wouldn't say it's the correct way of looking at the space, that we found something that works now, and that's as far as it's going to go. I think it would be a mistake to think that we've reached the pinnacle of our capabilities and we can all coalesce around one tribal chain and be done with it. That's clearly not what's happening here. So
but there are personalities as well, and that can play a part.
Sure.
Ethereum has grown such a strong network effects that it can happen that superior technology don't get the attention from the people they need to be adopted. And
certainly.
Yeah, but I can explain. I can speak about myself. This is fun.
Sure.
Although I'm very open-minded about different networks for running POAP, on other aspects of my life, I would be the most short-sighted person. Like, I have a couple set of restaurants I like to eat, and it's impossible that you make me eat somewhere else. Like, don't even try. And that could apply for that developers as well.
Sure.
And I can tell you, the restaurants I like to eat, they are nowhere near the top of the restaurants. They are quite average, or to not say mediocre.
Well, we're complex creatures, and we find affinity with things that sometimes you can't even quite explain. Ethereum's been amazing at creating a family. And I don't think it'll be the only project that succeeds at creating that glue between people like Ethereum has. As you mentioned, just in the way you described DevCon, as having to find this balance between the community feel, but also getting the right balance of people in. Just the very fact that they're not looking to sell 20,000 tickets and be done with it shows you the kind of thinking that's going on behind the scenes. With a project like Ethereum, but you're absolutely right. There's different things for different people.
But going back to other networks, it's a weird way to put it. But I would be highly surprised if none of the emerging networks like Definity, Near, Polkadot, Cosmos, Tezos, others don't eventually find product market fit. They have to. It may happen that some die. It can even be like the dot-com bubble where 90% of the companies die. But if those emerging projects that have top talent Some have almost unlimited funding, like the Tezos Foundation has like hundreds of millions of dollars. How could they not have some at least mild success if people want decentralized apps? I think this is going to be a play mostly. We are either making something that makes sense and the tide lifts all ships, or we all have failed, including Ethereum.
Well, I would say then there's plenty of reason to be very excited, because I use these decentralized networks now like they're very much part of my life, and they are, especially which is one of the reasons why I enjoy the NFT space so much, because it feels so much closer to who I am in terms of what I collect, what I enjoy, what I want to show other people that I like and enjoy, and that runs a lot deeper than just I have this bag full of these coins. Isn't that great? And I think just that's testament to the size of the NFT space and how it's growing. And I think POAP is in the middle of it.
Yeah, we haven't covered that. I haven't covered on my answers anything happening on the rest of the NFT space, because it is so intense that it would be a complete episode talking about what else is happening on the NFTs.
Sure. Well, I think that you've been so eloquent in how you've described POAP, and I think everyone listening can see that a community-led project based around being able to show your affiliations and where you've been and what you do and what you like, and that's that very much builds up your identity as well. I think we can all see the power behind something like that, and so yes, we can end this show on excitement in all areas. Thank you so much for coming on and explaining it.
I have a couple quick plugs.
Please carry on.
Anyone can issue POAP. If you want to issue POAP, join our Discord or Telegram, and we tell you how to do so. We are currently onboarding organizers, so if you run any sort of event, whether it's in person or virtual, it would be super fun if it has POAP. It doesn't have any cost, not even gas, because the XI network fees are so low that we cover it. So that's plug number one. Plug number two, we are hiring both technical and not technical positions. Technical are mainly front-end developers. We want our experience to be more pleasant, nicer. We want it to be beautiful, and we have a very talented in-house designer, but we still need someone to make that website. So we are hiring for that technical, and we also need help with operations, because as I mentioned, we have ongoing conversations with organizations like the US Open and others of similar caliber, and I can't keep up. It's too much work. We pay competitive salaries, and we believe that what we are building is really exciting. So maybe you are a crypto person that wanted to jump full time on working on something, and you felt quite frightening, because it's really frightening to be full time blockchain. Maybe POAP is a nice opportunity for you.
What a fantastic opportunity that is. Yeah. Amazing. Well, we normally have our first running of the show as we put them out in a Discord listening party. So I think we might have to do a POAP for the attendees of that particular listening party.
That would be fun. We have a Discord bot that makes it very easy for you, and there are many people doing so. Reach out to me privately, you know how, and we will get this done.
Oh, well, we'll definitely do that. Thank you so much for your time. This has been such an interesting conversation.
It's really fun. I'm very happy to be on this show.
Thanks so much, Patricio.
George, so that was awesome.
Yeah, what a fantastic guy. Amazing background and such a great view of the space.
Yeah, and it's cool to speak to such an OG.
Yeah, proper OG, absolutely.
So we've got some gerbils to talk about.
We do, one of my favourites.
Yeah, the gerbil of Wall Street.
At Where Kitty Won, thank you so much for this one. A year ago, we had so much fun with math and word, just playing around, minting for fun. But then these serious finance people came around and destroyed our playground. They made it into Wall Street. I watched the gerbil of Wall Street in his nice suit firing up the DeFi bots, eating up the free space in the blocks. With a fork and a knife, they eat high gwei. The Ethereum price rockets aim for the moon, with the army of the gerbil of Wall Street firing up their cigars, watching the fireworks. And I jump into the game for flow, the baby cadence, a hope for fun, the beautiful art that touched my heart. The gerbil of Wall Street ate it all. With the moon left behind, they aim for the stars. Wow. Poetic indeed.
Very poetic. Yes. Thank you, Where Kitty. Okay, so next up we've got Carla McJ. Wanted, gerbil of Wall Street. A pointy face lights up Times Square. The feds were moving in. The rodent's time was up, they said. That gerbil would never win. His last trade was a gamble. He had nothing left to lose. US dollar to Bitcoin was the trade. Blockchain he did choose. He rubbed his little hands together. Finally, I had won. But this not-so-clever creature hadn't realized what he'd done. Upon opening his wallet, they'd given him a phrase. But good old gerbil of Wall Street had been in such a haze. He'd thrown away a mix of words, not realizing their worth. And today he sits alone and poor, still unable to open that purse.
Again, very poetic. Like it.
That's terrible.
Thanks, Carla.
I mean, it's great, but it's a terrible story. I mean, it's a sad story.
It is indeed.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Carla. My words are not coming out right there.
The Wall Street types. So, at Rude Moose, thank you so much for this one. Behold, the tails, both the long and short, of the gerbil of Wall Street, and hamster cheeks. The trades and the schemes, as goes the report, based on shady dealings and secretive leaks. Ever more infamous in word and in deed, their operation went bust when cheeks swallowed the seed.
Awesome.
Yeah, very, very good. Like that. Naughty cheeks swallowed the seed. And that was it.
All done.
All done. Who's next then?
So, well, that brings us on to our winner. Congratulations, the Flaz. You have produced yet another gerbil rap, I think.
Yeah.
I would say.
Raptastic.
It was raptastic. So, we've turned it into a song. So,
of course. Of course we have.
Of course. We're building up to our album, aren't we? So,
yeah, this will be one of the standout tracks, I think.
Since trading penny stocks and racking up commissions, the gerbil of Wall Street is increasing his positions. PTC, he was an early adopter, now he's flying to the office in a mini helicopter. Ethereum, delirium, he got it in that too. Rolex on his wrist and paws and Jimmy Choo. He's flipped more times than Frank, see he's a true OG. He even schooled Whale Shark on how to NFT. The party in his MetaMask wallet is jumping higher than the moon with his altar pumping. He's running with the bulls compared to be a bear. So pay some respect to this gerbil billionaire.
Wow. You've outdone yourself there, Flaz. That's some deep rhyming, and congratulations.
yeah, there's a lot of very good references in that track. Yeah, shout out to Pranksy and Whale Shark and MetaMask and Jimmy Choo.
It's a total masterpiece. Was always going to be the winner.
So next up we have Baller Gerbil. So we released this early because we wanted to get this one turned over quickly. But you still have a chance. If you're listening to this on the Wednesday that this drops, or you're at the listening party right now, shout out, then you can get your entry in by the end of today. And then, all will be revealed soon.
Baller Gerbil. You could be Baller Gerbil just by playing this rap in the background, right? It's balling. Okay, I'll stop.
No, I laugh because it's so true.
Cool. Okay, well, that was great fun.
Awesome. Okay, so next week, should we announce the person next week? Next week we've got Alan from NBA Top Shot and Dapper Labs.
Of course we should announce, absolutely. He's a king of our space, a hero in so many ways, and a massive fan of the gerbils. So, we've got him back on. Really excited.
Yeah, he's going to give us the lowdown on everything that's happened with NBA Top Shot, which is a lot. A lot has happened.
A huge amount. Absolutely.
So, yeah, awesome. Right. See you then, George. And see you next time, everyone.
Cheers, buddy. Catch you later. Bye-bye.
Since trading penny stocks and racking up commissions, the trouble of Wall Street is increasing his positions. PTC, he was an early adopter, now he's flying to the office in a mini helicopter. Ethereum, delirium, he got it in that too. Rolex on his wrist and paws and Jimmy Choo. He's flipped more times than Frank, see he's a true OG. He even schooled Whale Shark on how to NFT.